Ishtanishta, you should have one ideal and take one path and study it for a long time and very much in depth. And that's why I put up this chart today that we will get to. It'll actually form my preamble for this class. You can consider it a teaching if you've been doing it already. You can consider it a scolding if you haven't. Because I'm going to bring out a certain aspect of it that's very important and that's missing in most of the spiritual lives or practices of most people in the West today, maybe even in the world, I feel. Divine remembrance is called smriti. It reminds me of watching a eulogy or something, which I was doing today, and how that memory is missing in your ancestors and it's missing in your family. Everybody's remembering inconsequential things, insubstantial things. When memory smriti in India in Sanskrit really means memory of your gurus, memory of the teachings you studied, memory of the meditations you had in which you had great experiences, meditation, remembrance of the Dharma. All of these things are the memories that you cherish, and Lord Buddha said those are the drops in your bucket, Dharma drops in your bucket. So you need to be out catching those, you see. The rain of God's grace is always falling, but you need to get a bucket to catch it. Might as well be Ramakrishna saying 2,000 years after Buddha, you see, because the way Sri Ramakrishna put it was, the wind of God's grace is always blowing, you need to raise your sail to catch it. So in Buddha's time it would be, the rain of grace is always falling. You need to get a bucket, run around and catch that. So if you're running around your life, a great little study of life, like cats mewing in their corner, to quote Vivekananda's estimation of most people's lives he saw in both India and America, then you're not catching anything to remember, anything worthy remembering. So part of my introduction to this subject today will be about manana, how to remember things, how to make them stick. As we know in Zen, the idea is snow can fall for a long time on wet ground. It rains first, snows later. We're dreaming of a white Christmas. No, you're getting a wet Christmas, you see. And because the ground is so wet, the snow's not sticking. So if your mind is wet with worldliness, that is only remembering egos and what they did, only remembering what happens from birth to life to death, not beyond and not before. Rebirth and before birth, the Bardo states that the Tibetans talk about, then you're not gathering anything up, and snow is not sticking. Snow is that beautiful bank of Dharma, white Dharma, you see. Not black Dharma. People are talking about occult powers and things that to get fascinated with. That's all part of those things which should quickly be forgotten. There are some things worth remembering. There are also some things definitely to be forgotten. You need to forget them, get over them. And your ego would be one of those, your unripe ego. Your ripe ego, that begins to store up some of these Dharma teachings. Because you've dried out the ground of your mind. It's sticking, it's finally sticking, it's collecting. Now I want to give you that teaching, and for those of you who aren't doing it, that's scolding, especially my own students who have heard this teaching about the three proofs of truth, or the three powerful practices, Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana, also called in another time by another great footfall, Shruti, Yukti, and Anubhav. So you heard me, right? I said, Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Chaitaneti Abhidhyate, or Smriti Rupena Samstita, I sang. So you heard it. That's Shravana. Oh, great, I heard it. It's beautiful. It was even put to music that made it even sweeter. You see. Then I told you what it meant, word by word. Now, did you realize it? Or did you just exult in it for a few minutes and then go on into your life, your great little study of life? Or going out of this ashram without taking a bucket with you, or with a wet road in your mind? Or did you understand what I was saying when I was talking about smriti, memory, rupena, form, samsita, steadiness, namastasya, saluting you 3 times? You heard that in response to the word I uttered, the words that I said. Now you take them home and you do the manana. So this chart, I would almost erase these 2. Or leave this just barely there and forget about realization and meditation. My teaching of late has been, quit meditating, start contemplating. That's why we're not producing Jivan Muktas in the West, or illumined souls in America and Europe and so forth, especially of the variety of the Indian rishi or seer, that is highest wisdom knowers, is because we think we can jump to meditation without knowing everything along the way, along the path. You see this chart, it has 3 paths. Nice cobblestone there, stairs, you see. So one of those is Sankhya, one of them's yoga, and one's Vedanta. Yoga here, please take it in the authentic and highest sense. Ashtanga, you can use that, means 8-limbed. In other words, it's not 1-limbed or 2-limbed. Also, you could call it Raja Yoga, like the name of the book Swami Vivekananda put out. That is a simple commentary for us Westerners on how to understand the Yoga Sutras, which are the most complex system of philosophy I've ever found in my life, other than Tantra. But Tantra was never systematized. So yoga is really it. That's deep and complex. It's like our computer the other day. I've written this big book, you see, we're trying to get out. And so we put it on this new software that said, here, try this out. It'll condense your file for you. And a big warning sign came up and said, this is too complex for this software. We can't do it. So the whole reason you created it was to do this, and it can't do it. So that's how much content there is in a huge amount that needs to be somehow brought into your understanding. And as I was just saying about just taking one path and diving deep into it, one deep well, not a bunch of shallow wells, so you can get water and know that the water's the same in the religion you have is the same essence in every other religion. That's a Vedantic saying out of more modern times, digging one deep well. So, as I was saying about that, then why am I telling here, that you have 3 paths, Samkhya, Yoga, and Vedanta? I want to show you how they're connected, and you might as well be calling yourself an aspirant of all 3 of them, because they're all saying the same thing in different ways. Your memory, your smriti again, has to understand this, hear the words, and so I was saying, if you just go through the daily actions of your life, you hear a few wisdom things out of the Gita, and your guru says a few things, and then you just jump into meditation with them. Have you found anything to happen with that yet? On good days when sattva is in your mind, you're balanced, you say, oh, that was a great teaching, yum. You see, kind of getting some appreciation of that teaching again. But on bad days, it's not helping you at all. On restless days, not helping you at all. And it goes on like that all year for 365, hopefully, meditations that you've taken. But if you were to do this, manana, if you were to consider things, it immediately puts me in mind of Lord Buddha sitting some 49 days or so under the bo tree. Do you think he was meditating the whole time? He was probably remembering everything that his 2 Samkhya teachers told him. So now we look back and we say, oh, he didn't, like somebody actually wrote and said that to me. oh, he left his Sankhya teachers because they weren't good enough. He had to find a new way. The teaching of the Sankhya is what was his foundation. The first philosophy he had was Sankhya Yoga. And those two teachers grounded him well in it. Who are you to say that he didn't take that under the bow tree and find his new way based upon everything that had been written down and unfortunately lost at the time of Lord Kapila? Because Lord Kapila was born in Kapilavastu. Where was Buddha born? 2,000 or 3,000 years later, in Kapilavastu. So, the 24 cosmic principles, the 37 limbs of enlightenment. It might as well have been the same soul coming back again. And why stop there? We might as well be the same soul. Same Atman in all of us. Isn't that the teaching? We're all the same soul. We're not the same egos and the same... we even have the same elements in our body. Blood, flesh, bone, marrow, fat. And if you want to study that part of Hatha Yoga, that'll help you maybe. You see, to know the dhatus, the karanas, and especially the karanas. So here's a part of the preamble that's sort of taking you into contemplating the truth as being a big part of what we need to do right now. And we need to go spend hours of doing it. So I mentioned that satsang yesterday, live streaming satsang. Saturday morning we have them, if you want to join us for an hour. And I mentioned there that we had been reading Swami Ranganathananda, who is one of the recent and late presidents of the Ramakrishna order, and that came across a saying in there that when he was writing, he said, one measure of study, 10 measures of contemplation. So if you go read something, what to speak for a whole book? Oh, I read it. See, can you remember a thing out of it? A lot of people can't. They have to think real hard. It just went by. Like Sri Ramakrishna said, once the sweet meat goes down your mouth, you don't remember how it tastes. See, you can't remember. So you don't have very good control over your tanmatras, I would say, in that case. But whatever the case, you don't remember a thing you read, and you have to think hard to even dredge up one or two things, you see. So it's going to be an entirely different case if you read a small amount and go think about it somewhere. So one sloka of reading, 1 minute, 50 minutes of thinking about it somewhere. Not meditating, manana. So that's why we chant Shrutehe, Shatagunam, Vidyan, Mananam, Mananad Api, Nidhi Jasam, Lakshagunam, Anantam Nirvikalpakam. Infinite realization, infinite nirvikalpa, Anantam Nirvikalpakam. You get into the infinite by doing this process of the three great truths. Hear it, contemplate it, and meditate it, realize it. See? We're not doing enough of the middle. And so we're just taking it for granted that this snow is going to stick in our minds, in our wet minds, wet with worldliness. What's going to stick at the end of the day? Could put it in that way, you see. What's going to stick? What memory is going to stick? And where is it sticking? Probably all the good and bad things that happen to you are going to stick in the ego. But your witness isn't going to have one thing to live on. So what does it do? It dies. You don't have one. You don't have a ripened ego because it never considered what it was told. Just like a precocious young boy or girl who were told many things and they didn't remember them. So they become inept later in their life, socially and every other way. You have to take these things and drive them into your mind. Whenever I drive over the Bay Bridge, you see, go to the ashrams to teach and so forth, I think of how deep they drove those pylons, or whatever they're called, down into the mud of the bottom of San Francisco Bay in order to build that foundation of the bridge across it. How deep that had to go. So that is an analogy. You have to drive these teachings that deep into your mind. A little bit of inspiration. Oh, I read the Gita, it was beautiful. See, I read something yesterday, but did you go somewhere and drive it deep into your mind? The meaning of it. So, shruti, to hear, shravana, you see. The scriptures are also called shrutis. And smritis. The very scriptures are called these things. Like they're named after your mind, you see. Maybe you should rename your mind after them now. Shatagunam vidyan, wisdom, you see. Manana, in your mind, do the manana, api. And do it again and again. Nidijasana, then realize what you're told. There's where a good meditation will happen. So, you thought about it for a long time, your mind got inspired, it retained what it heard, then it sat for meditation, and it was transported into ecstasy. Because the way I would put that is that you split a few of the wisdom particles in your mind. Jnana matras. I've been teaching Jnana matras for quite a while now to my students. So somebody, one young student from Europe at the satsang yesterday or recently said, oh, I went and watched your talk from a few weeks ago on the third eye. I must admit that that day I didn't have many of my wisdom particles together, so I have to go back and watch it again. You see. So they're beginning to use this expression. See, I better get my wisdom particles together. So about half an hour ago, a student told me, I'm going to write an article on awareness and consciousness and how it can burn away and reveal things if I bring my awareness. Call it focus if you like. See, that power is heightened and strengthened by manana, not by meditation that's random, or not by just hearing something and walking away. A lot of people go to the guru and hear and go away, and hear and go away. But where's their practice? Where's the practice of considering it? And you know why I think it's not there? It's because they don't come back and ask me questions. If you're a member of the Burloka, which is the physical world, in the Kali Yuga, which is happening right now, then when you hear the truth, it's not going to make sense to you. There'll be a little ring of truth. I'll show you that in a minute. But there'll be a little ring to it, but it's not going to stick. You're going to have questions. So say I have 100 students whom entered into the path. And I have 3 or 4 that ask me questions. The rest don't. Not one question. Some of them write me every day with questions. What that means is that they're reading something and studying something. That's one of the first tenets of Sankhya Yoga. One of the first great attainments is that you take up a path and study it under a teacher. Kapila couldn't have put it any clearer. So as a part of this scolding teaching that I'm giving, really I would like to think of it more as encouragement. I'm going to take you through this in a whirlwind, because we studied it before. It is a newer chart, but let's see if you can hear what you're supposed to hear, and really hear it. That would be Shravana. Hear it from an illumined preceptor grounded in the tradition. If somebody just says, oh, I heard that, you see, or I've heard about the Atman, or they say that Brahman is in everything, say, thank you very much, where can I go and learn about this, you see? I need to find someone who knows about it. It can't be from a beach bum or from a hitchhiker or for someone at some fundamentalist church or from family and friends. To hope for help from family and friends provides no solution. Don't you know that everyone is lost here? Everyone lives in pallid imitation of everyone else. If everyone were doing manana, then the rest would be running to do manana, but nobody's doing manana, so they're not running to do it. And there are always, of course, exceptions. So hear it from an illumined teacher grounded in the tradition, like I did from Swami Asheshanandaji Maharaj, peace and bliss be upon him, in the town of my birth, when I was in my late teens. Hear it from a soul like that. Thank God there was one in a town like Portland at that time. It's a kind of a miracle when you think about it. So you will be led to a teacher if you're smriti, if you remember your teacher from last lifetime. If you studied what you heard from a teacher, he will come, she will come. She did for him. He was born in Bengal, I think Calcutta, and Holy Mother was right there. The Divine Mother of the Universe in human form, they call her. He found her in his late teens. And some of the direct disciples of Ramakrishna were still living. So, I was going to go through this quickly, I know what you're thinking. But it's so important to set this up. And if you have set it up, oh, I have an illumined teacher who gives me good teachings, then go and think about that. All the time, think about that. Don't think about your own ego, you see. Not putting yourself into the tradition. Oh, I want to be free in some sort of wild way. All my obeisances go to those teachers who woke me up from any form of ignorance that was still persisting in my mind. Because I wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't have those teachers. Wouldn't be there. And probably wouldn't for lifetimes. Hear it with intelligence intact and heart open. Okay, heart open, self-surrender. Get rid of this rascally ego that's so proud. And with intelligence intact, see if you can put a magnet in your mind, you see. And some of those iron filings that are your intelligence particles will somehow have something to gather around. So here I'm really trying now to focus, but my intelligent particles aren't coming together. See? My magnet must not be charged up. It's like trying to start a car with a dead battery, kicking a dead horse. Or I heard a funny thing yesterday that John Wayne said, I see the other day. John Wayne, the great American Western guy, shoot him up. He said, you can't fix stupid. It sort of went with because I was talking to my friend about this, you see, and I said, I like that word dumbfounded, because it describes America perfectly. Dumb went and found us all. And so we're all dumbfounded. And so we have to get rid of dumb, but you can't fix stupid at the same time. So you're going to have to put something in your mind, the nature of a magnet, that's going to bring these iron filings of your own intelligence together into one focal point. I'm talking about, if thine eye be single, you shall know the truth. But first you'll have to hear the truth from someone. This is how you would hear it and it would stick. This is all thought out by yours truly. The teaching is in the tradition. The dynamics are my experience with teaching people for the last 30 years, 40 years. And then teaching myself prior to that, via my teachers, you see. How come they know so much? You see? Why can my teacher Swami Sheshanandaji stand up there at 86 years of age on the podium and recite the entire Gita in Sanskrit and then in English at his age. When all the other old feeble minds out there that I knew of, and my family and friends and grandparents and everything, had nothing at that age. They had a few memories around some pictures in a photo album. As if that's going to help them in the least. So I'm giving you, I mean, it's sort of dichotomous hippopotamus. I mean, I'm going to go hear the truth, okay? Oh, no, you're not. You have to do this first. Whoever told you that? Or I'm going to see the Dalai Lama, you see? Or I'm going to see Sheikh Musafir Effendi, you see? Or I'm going to see any teacher that has come to America in the last 40, 50 years. Oh, no, you're not. You need to prepare yourself to hear it even. That's real qualification. You can roll the dice, take a chance. I'll go hear it and see what happens, you see. And you'll probably find out that either you don't have a bucket or the avenue of your mind is still wet with worldliness. So snow's not going to stick and Dharma drops aren't going to accumulate. And you won't realize that till 10 or 20 years later. Oh yeah, I heard him once. Well, what did you hear? You're supposed to be an enlightened soul. Well, I don't remember. Really, there were people who met Swami Vivekananda in America back in the late 1800s who remarked about him later after he had passed. But they didn't give any teachings that he gave. Oh, I remember him. You see, so it's the ancestor run of things. Your memory is just it's a brain. It's not a mind. Scientists are saying now, oh, we think we see there's a difference between the mind and the brain. Well, hallelujah, it's about time we found that out. But here's a real pointer to what is some of the main difference between that. Is the brain is just a memory storage unit around emotionalism, sentimentalism, mystery mongering, aggrandizement, occult powers. One person wrote me the other day, saying, I'm really into occult powers. There's this book I'm reading. I can cast spells and so forth. And what do you want to do that for? Pick up the Upanishad and ennoble your mind, I told him. They don't need a bunch of books or a bunch of different... I told him, he said, I'm reading this book from that tradition, I want to read that book, and then I'm going to go get this one, and I've got this one. I said, you know what Sri Ramakrishna said? That cows who feed on an open field from different kinds of grasses give milk in torrents, but it stinks. The milk they give smells funny. But the cow who just feeds on the alfalfa or clover that's just right there, that's fed, or whatever is fed to him by the farmer, to her, gives this sweet, nourishing milk. So you know that he's talking about the soul that runs about gathering various things, at least prior to the point when they've brought together their focus, so that they can appreciate and they can acknowledge. That to me is the real affirmation. People are saying, you know, Tatomasi, that thou art, I am that. It's just like a parrot saying it. See? So it doesn't do anything. It's not worthwhile affirmation. It's a word, a few words that pass in a moment. But if you'd studied the whole makeup and qualified yourself to say that, then it would put you in samadhi. You know, I've told you that before. In the old days, they came. Can I hear the truth from you? I'm ready. I'm qualified. I have sadhana chatushtaya. Right there. I have sadhana chatushtaya. It means I have the 4 treasures and the 6 jewels. I am qualified to hear the truth now. Tell it to me. Okay, listen to this discourse. Great, that's great. I understand that. Can you put it in a few less words now? Yeah, here's a couple slokas from this scripture by some great seer. Wonderful, that's really getting close now. I almost have it. Can you just put it in a couple words? Yes, tatvamasi. Then, boom, he's in samadhi. I am transported in ecstasy. Ram Prasad says in one of his songs, sings this about the Mother of the Universe. I am transported in ecstasy by seeing the vision of the black goddess striding across the battlefield of relativity, killing egos with her sword of wisdom. I am transported in ecstasy by seeing this. And he heard the song, he learned it, he wrote it, whatever, he composed it, he sang it again and again, he committed it to memory, and now he's helping others get transported in ecstasy. So that's what happens to a person who prepares to hear tatvamasi. And that was the old style they did it. You had to have the qualifications, then the teacher could whisper in your ear 3 words. You knew what each of them meant. And you put them together through the power of the lips of an illumined preceptor, and it transported you in ecstasy. Shravana yapi buhu bir yo la yabaha shrinvatopi bahavo yamna vidyahud. Some have heard of the Atman. Others have not heard at all about it. Some of it has heard of it from the lips of an illumined preceptor. 3 different kinds of beings, you see. So which one do you think is going to remember it in old age, or at the time of death, or in their next lifetime? Those who apprenticed the Guru, who were illumined. So here, for the purpose of enlightenment, this is the other thing I thought about, because you could have these first 2, sort of like you could have the first 2 fruits of life, and maybe it wouldn't go anywhere, you see, if you didn't complete the quotient. So what's the next stumbling block in hearing the truth? I'm hearing it for the wrong purpose. I want others to think I'm enlightened. You see, like this person who wrote me about reading this and that. I want others to admire me. I'm a conspiracy theorist, you see. You know those people, right? Like there's aliens out there and so forth, and they're on Earth, or there's the Walking Dead somewhere after you. You know, they're actually beginning to believe in some of this superstition. It's just bunk. Curses and all that. Bring me whatever's cursed. I'll say a mantra over it, get rid of the curse in an instant. I'm not superstitious. Religion has become superstition now. So, why do that? Why even entertain anything like that? Get yourself ennobled and hear the truth, and the truth will set you free. If thine eye is single, focused. So, hear it for the purposes of getting enlightenment, you see. Not of telling others about it. The conspiracy theorists say, well, I'm going to make this up so people really think I'm in the know, you see. And they make it up and then they start to believe in it themselves. They probably knew it was just a hoax all along. But they want to impress people. See? Oh, with what I know. Well, how about impressing them with what no one else knows? With the knowledge. With Shruti. With Shravana. With what the teachers, with what the seers know. Did I skip one? Know it both in their outer and inner meaning. So I already mentioned that. You can read a book, never remember another thing from it. How many books did we read in high school? Can you remember the name of the dog in The Call of the Wild? Probably because there's a movie out now about it. Horrible version of the movie with animated dogs and horrible things like that. So, can you remember anything out of all the books you read in the school library? Because I know, because I read them all. I didn't go to class. The library in high school was my classroom. And I got C's just on what I knew about worldly topics. I got an A in music. And Jim, the active young boy. But basically, the library was my school. I read everything in there, category by category. And I'm not proud of it. I had to dump a lot later. So that's knowing the outer meaning of things. And the same can happen to you in religion, and I dare say in the art of spirituality too. You can just know the outer meaning of it, like Tatsumasi. There are people who can discourse for hours on these sayings and never really able to communicate to you the essence of the teachings. What is that? One of the 4 qualifications of a true teacher is that they are able to communicate to you the essence of the teachings, not just the letter of the law. So that's a true teacher. What else we got here? Hear it with a view to inform others about it. Once you know it yourself, then Sri Ram says in the 9 limbs of bhakti, share it with others, without any ostentation around it, because that's the other of the 4 qualifications of the teacher. That's one other one. And they don't want to show off. They don't want to have power over you. They don't want anything from you except that you get enlightened. And they're going to present it to you in the least ostentatious way. It's just natural. And hear it to destroy ignorance for all time. I have received a command from within, from the Divine Mother of the universe, that ignorance must die. Death must die. So I'm going about killing each one of those in my lifetime. The very idea of them is odious to me, because they're both unreal. The soul never dies, and ignorance has no substance. Om pramadana na sandeha kim karishyami vrittiman. Udpadjante viliyante buddhas cha yata jale. Jale is water, jala. See, so like bubbles in water. Buddhas sounds like bubbles, doesn't it? Like bubbles in water, things rise. You just let them rise and fall, dissolve. Those bubbles are in your mind, they're your thoughts. And they come out of a mula vidya, ignorant swamp that's in the lower part of your mind. Call it the brain, if you will, or call it the thinking of the ancestors, you see. This swamp, this morass of stuff, like a underlying, you see. Bubbles will rise off of that ooze down there, naturally, just like oxygen bubbles rise off of crap at the bottom of a lake. So here they're rising up, you see, but they're unreal, they're unreal. Ignorance has no reality. So what about the doubt that ignorance gives me? Since ignorance is unreal, and I've proven that to myself, then the doubt that comes from the ignorance must also be unreal. So if I told you pramadana na sandeha kim karishyani brittiman, you would go under a tree and think about that. Come back a day or two later. I had a question. When you were saying it, I understood it. But after I went and thought about it, I have a question. You said that doubt was unreal. One of those doubts came to me. And they never would have if you hadn't have heard the teaching and gone to think about it. See? You have to find out that those things that are in you that are impedances are not real. So you have to go through the steps that take you towards the doubt that's in your mind that's considering them to be real. And then you have transportation into bliss. Then any one of these pathways can launch you on into the adventure of consciousness, ending the goal of human existence. call in Sankhya called Kaivalya, in yoga called Asamkhya, in Vedanta called Nirvikalpa. There's another stairway going off over here, let's say Buddhism, called Nirvana. So that's how to hear the truth. See? And it's a part of the preamble I'm going to give you, which is going to consist of 3 preambles today, first half. I also want to read to you the Samkhya in its original form. 10 statements of what Samkhya came to know to be the truth. I also want to show you the chest of consciousness that Samkhya is a metaphor for Samkhya teachings that lasted all the way to the Vedanta era in Vedavyasa's time. I'm calling it the chest of consciousness because it has 3 drawers. That is the outer, the inner, and the transcendent. Everything here is made of that. You don't just have an outer life, you have a whole inner life. Are you living it? Are you acknowledging it? Are you opening up to it? Are you really opening to life? Or are you just running around in circles with pills and psychological advice based on some newfangled system that really has its roots in India, which you found in your lifetime but didn't stick to, which you heard from your teacher but didn't do manana on? Otherwise you would be in total awe of the philosophy and in total reverence of the Guru who gave it to you. Let's look at what manana consists of quickly, I hope quickly, to contemplate that truth you heard. First, subject it to the testimony of the seers. Oh, wait a minute, I have to go next door. There's a seer living over there. I have to go and see what he can tell me about the scriptures. No, see, not in America you don't. And besides, you can't leave your house right now. Even the seers are practicing social distancing, but it's 6 miles instead of 6 feet. But you have to go to where the seers are broadcasting all the time. So your guru, living guru would be one thing, your ashrama, if you can keep it alive in a country like this, or the great revealed scriptures as I just chanted. The revealed scriptures are its cosmic mind. So you'll have to go into the cosmic mind inside of you and hear what is being said, measured against what the scriptures declare. That is, as I will show you in the next 3 weekends, all 3 of these great souls, Lord Kapila, Patanjali, who did the Patanjali system, and Vedavyas, the most current fathers or rishis of those 3 great footfalls, they all concur on most everything, and definitely everything that is essential. Discuss it daily with the spiritual preceptor. Well, that's what writing and asking questions is. Even on an email nowadays, there's really no excuse for you not to be in communication daily or at least weekly with your teacher. I was reading and I found this. Asking a question isn't a shame on you. See? You could even share your insights, and that would bring up deeper questions. That's what discourses are for, dredging up. See, manana, stir up the mind. Could almost be a second statement, part B of that. Don't discuss it with worldly people. You want doubt to come at you full force? Yeah, go ahead and do it then. If you want to really face off with doubt, and you have Mother's sword of discrimination, and you want to be in battle and become victorious, show everyone how strong you are and how you survived, write a t-shirt about it, then sure, go ahead and do it, see. But otherwise, keep it amongst your Sangha, your Guru, and the Rishis, the seers themselves. Isn't that enough? Perceive it as the internal voice of the Vakdevi. Well, there's your teacher, Babaji's touch there again, you see in this chart. I would go to the Vakdevi because she's the goddess of the word, of all words. And Shankara says, take words, melt them back into your mind. Then take the words in your mind and the mind itself, melt it, merge it into the intellect. Then take all three of those and merge it into the ego. By this time, the ego is a friend because it's accepting what you're giving it. You see. And then merge all four of those into the witness. And then way over here, talking with one of the students and saying that there are actually three kinds of ego, but if you say there's a ripe and unripe ego, then you take the unripe ego, you can split that into as well. The unripe witness. See, there's a witness running around in all of you, in all of us, you see. And what's it doing? It's judging. That's the unripe witness in us. I'm better than that. I'm better than that. Oh, I'm not as good as that, but I'll be better than that, you see. This and that, it's manas. It's manas doing manana. See? With ahamkara at the helm, you see. But there's a ripe ego in you too that is not in most people. That's not judging, that's saying, that's distancing. Forget social distancing. How about spiritual distancing? Just back off from all those things that everyone's talking about. Take your own self as your own counsel. Because haven't you already checked it with the rishis, the scriptures, and your guru? So now it's your turn. See how it's leading you towards realization. A realization that's not going to leave you high and dry. A realization that's going to turn you into a living, liberated soul and not throw you back in the mix next lifetime again with your ancestors because of doubt and fear and lack of memory. I remember talking with one of my brothers who's passed here on a beach on Oahu when I was in my late 20s. He was in his 30s, and he said, walking down the beach at night under the stars, you see, he said, you know, Babaji, I think there's a way to keep your mind together when you die. I really feel that's possible. And he was not a spiritual person at all. He was just kind of a free-thinking rascal, you see. And came to no good in the end, in some ways, but was good-hearted. See. But that one statement of his, I remember it. He was thinking about after death, a way to keep your mind together after death, you know, who you are. I think maybe thinking about it in terms of the ego, I should stay myself, you see, but who are you? So most of the great seers are going to tell you, like Ramana Maharshi, you see, well, you want to keep yourself together after death? Which self are you talking about? You want to keep your mind-ego complex together with all its problems that have been added to in this lifetime for another 50, 60, 70 years? You want to put that back together? Most people are having to do that and they're not even trying. It's called ignorance. But you're actually trying to put it all back together in the same composite. See? And some people go so far as to say, well, my body won't die, I'll be immortal. That's a very suspect word in our language, immortal. Try eternal, or everlasting, or any other thing, see. Not immortal. Because it's been used by the Romans. Since the time of the Romans, my body will be immortal. Even before the Romans, it was used by the Egyptians, and they're mummifying their kings in tombs for an afterlife. There's no afterlife for that body. It's decayed. Why are you trying to preserve it? Let it go. So what are you trying to preserve that's so all-fired, almighty, and great about you? See? When all the other seers are running towards the other avenue of give it all up. See, Sri Ramakrishna said, of all the devotees that came to me, only one was big enough to outgrow Maya. Swamiji got over the chain link fence of Maya. All the others became so small they went through the little chinks. See, that's the way most beings will go. Make yourself so small that Maya can't find you, which means that ignorance can't find you, which means that karma can't find you, that means that death cannot find you. Those are three gods in India. They come looking for you. Kama, karma, and yama. See? Kama, karma, yama, kama, karma, yama, kama, karma, yama. See? Might as well make a mantra out of it. See? You cannot find me because I became so small I slipped through the chink in the net of Maya and got free. Every lifetime I did. So I know how to expand and contract myself now. I must expand my mind in its ability to, capacity to know Brahman. See? But I must shrink everything else that kama, karma, or Maya can find in me, so that I will not have any trace left over after I pass away. Who does it remind you of who named themselves that? Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj, peace and bliss be upon him. Sheshananda, Shesha is residue. Not such a good residue in that case. Ashesha means having no residue after death. So he wanted to make damn sure that nothing could find him. He was a monk that took a canoe and rowed it to a far-off island. When he got to the island, he burned the canoe. He's not coming back. And that's what Lord Buddha said. Have no hope for me forevermore for this world. I'm gone, gone forever. Gatam, gatam, paragatam. I've gone beyond all these lesser goals to the supreme goal, nirvana. You'll never see me here again. I'll send my bodhisattvas to help you, is another interpretation. So, refine it with ongoing worship and meditation. Here's where nididhyasana and all of that begins to help you. See, now your meditations will be in full. You don't have to just, and how many can, go into formlessness in every meditation? I'm really trying not to think here, I can tell you. See? And, I didn't think for a while, but actually I just went blank. Father of Yoga has a teaching about that. Well, I didn't have any thoughts for like a half hour. Was that samadhi? No, you just went blank. Your mind went into deep sleep, like last night, where you were close to God but didn't see God, didn't remember God when you woke up. What's the purpose for the Pacific Ocean out there that surrounds our tiny little islands here? So that when you see the ocean, you remember that God is an ocean of wisdom and mercy. If you get impressed by seeing the ocean, that will be in your smriti, a way of, when you go into deep sleep tonight, seeing the ocean of consciousness and remembering it. Everything here is what's inside, as in heaven on earth. Purnamadaha, Purnamidam, Purnat. What is outside came from the inside. Take outside and inside, blend them into one state, meditate on that state. Basically, that's what you're doing here. You heard what's outside by the voice, the vak, of your teacher. You rendered it into, you saw the inner in your mind, the inner version of what was outside. You put it into one state and realized it. Then you passed your time contentedly, you see. Shankara saying that to you. Perceive it as the internal voices of Vakdevi. All right, let's look at nididhyasana. Realize the truth. refine consciousness and raise it to higher centers of awareness. I heard it, I thought about it, I've determined it, I'm going to use it. See? I'm going to use it to raise my awareness every day. I'm going to live in a higher center. And if I find myself fall back from that center, I'll go and look inside to see where the holes are in that chink in my armor, so I can plug them up, raise it again, and it won't fall again. I'm not going to be happy with second best, you see, or complacent, you see. Navada tushtihi is a teaching here, you see, in Sankhya. The 9 complacencies. That's one of them. The version of that was in yoga, you can probably remember what I'm saying right now, you see. Complacencies. Father of Yoga had his version of that too, and how to undo it. Confirm all results with ongoing spiritual practice. You keep the practice going. Transform life in the world and body in the light of this truth. Bring it right here into the physical, even though the physical rejects it and is very stodgy and very stubborn and very resistant. You bring it right down here like the pylons in bedrock and mud of San Francisco Bay. Sink it deep. If you had have done that in the last lifetime, you wouldn't be suffering what you're suffering in this lifetime. Or to the extent that you did do it in the last lifetime, you're here and on the same page with me. And aware of the uniqueness of what you have. You're seeing God in others, hearing about it in tradition, knowing that it existed in the seers of the past. What more do you want? Time to get busy. Then be open to non-dual truth and stages of successive samadhi. Wouldn't it be nice to be there already, all the time, like Sri Ram Krishna? Meditate on non-dual realization, non-dual reality, until karmas, gunas, and even forms disappear. So you can see, like in meditation, forms are coming back. Sometimes they go away, sometimes they come back. But after 10 or 20 or 30 years or a whole lifetime of meditation, nothing really happened. You didn't realize the truth yet. Try that very same thing after doing all this. And then see if forms come back on you. Then realize the identity of the apparent self with the Atman. So, Shankar's advice that I didn't quite finish a few minutes ago, then when you have that witness consciousness, merge it into Brahman. Because Brahman is the soul in everything. That's what you are after all the time, and what you are after you always were. And as you were after it, you forgot you were that. So Smriti, remembrance, your memory, you see, is important to remind yourself of who you are as you're on the path. It's just sort of like that nice way of saying where you would apprehend a thing prior to its existence, or prior to its manifestation or appearance. So you have to be thinking like that, ahead of the game all the time. I've really called this by one English mantra, Hirsi. So you hear, you see, and then you be. You are. So that's what these 3 shells here are saying in the sound that they emit. First you hear the truth, then you see the veracity, the validity of it, and then you become it again. You are that. The becoming was all a game, because you were always that. So if you understand it in this way, you don't run the risk of trespassing against the Advaitic axioms by presuming too much. That's what I told a recent student. You presume too much by thinking that you're like Jesus, you're like Buddha. Yes, you can try and be like them. By all means, better yourself. But don't presume too much too early. I think we're coming to the end of our first half, and we will be able to finish this chart. A long preamble, but really it turned into a big teaching, scolding, or encouragement about the three main practices in Advaita Vedanta. You're a non-dualist when you're studying this. If you have to be looking back upon this and reminding yourself, you just forgot part of your Advaitic training. Now remember it, and here CB. It can all happen right away for you because you're already on the same page, you see. You're hearing it from your preceptor. Now you've gotten encouragement to go back and make it live inside of you. You say, oh, going and contemplating somewhere in the tree, that must be boring. Are you kidding? Do you ever see Sri Ramakrishna and in bliss all the time, with nothing, owning nothing? It wasn't in non-dual meditation all the time. Even Holy Mother said, you can't be in meditation all the time. You have to go be active in the world some. Sri Ramakrishna put that, a bird flies high in the sky, but every once in a while it has to come to rest on a branch. So in the meantime, what's in between that? You're thinking about this all the time. Our founder here, Lex Hixon, when he was passing himself from cancer at the end of his life, late 50s, he was asked, what do you think about here, as it were, prior to your passing from the body? And he said, I think about food, and I think about how to make these teachings accessible to others. Food means probably going to be reborn again here to help us. Bodhisattva kind of vow. And teachings mean I have to find a way to get this Dharma into more minds, more people. And those people have to be qualified. You can't fix stupid. So don't go about trying to do it. You have to find qualified beings who can hear this, turn it into something powerful, get free of suffering, and then go and share it with others, right? That's that your orientation there? Hear it for purposes of enlightenment, and then with a view to inform others about it. To end, we'll end with these quotes. Shankara says, there is no other means for the control of mental states except knowledge of the self and the train of remembrance about it. Know the self, remember the self, pretty much 2 in 1 there. And the other side of that shell of being, pure being, he says, nididhyasana is not a means to liberation. Knowledge of the self must already be present for nididhyasana to occur. So precognition, I was just saying, that's the word I was looking for. You should know that you're enlightened all the time, and never was not the case. Nobody can take you away from Divine Mother, from Brahman. You are always one with your essence. You dreamed yourself away, or some fool talked you out of it, or some pack of fools did it, called your ancestors. But you're always that, one with Brahman. So it's not a means to liberation, you're already there. So a flash in a window pane, isn't that what we were talking about 2 weeks ago? The flash in the window pane causes a big light, but that light does not reflect in the wooden shutters around the window pane. So you have to be that window pane, as clear as you can be, to receive the light of that flash of truth, which is realization of your own self, which is already at hand. It's always upon you. Why are you running away from it? To me, that's the real teaching in Hound of Heaven, Christian teaching. It's not a matter of you're a sinner and you fell from grace. It's a matter of remembering that you dreamed yourself a sinner and you thought you fell from grace. And now wake up. It's all about spiritual awakening. But for the awakening to stick, like snow sticks on dry ground, here's what you do to qualify yourself. It's all mental. There's not one physical exercise here. There's not one pranayama here. The yamas and niyamas have all been transcended here. Even pratyahara is having a hard time existing here. Fourth limb of yoga, fifth limb of yoga, concentration is beginning to. You're on the step, the fifth step of yoga, when you're courting the truths of Advaita Vedanta, the three great proofs. Noble, powerful system that depends on nothing else in the field of India's darshanas, that holds itself up by its own veracity, by its own truth. And it's all mental, intellectual, philosophical, spiritual, and beyond. These are the gateways to formlessness, in the most mature sense. So at the bottom here is a quote, and we'll take our break. Retrieving the sense of hearing from the cacophony of commerce, common talk, and verbiage, turning the two eyes inwards towards singular sight, and rescuing the mind from the throng of endless and pointless worldly activity are the requisites for the threefold powerful practices, which transforms one's being and ushers it into the ocean-like depths of breathless peace, purest understanding, and non-dual awareness. If you don't remember anything else from this class, go to the break with that in your mind. A very inspiring threefold thought, and keep that with you until we see you again in 15 or so minutes, where we will continue on with the first real teachings about Sankhya Yoga. Jai Shri Guru.